here. I'm certain that I am not the only one who had a late night last night, and so the coffee is free-flowing and the carbs are also available to you should you need to avail yourself of those. It's a pleasure to be here today on a very serious subject, one that is unfortunately top of mind and also fortunately a bipartisan conversation. In a time when we are deeply divided, it is good to know that we can, at a minimum, come together on something as important as this is. I thank you all for the opportunity to learn more about the U.S. Army's strategies for low-intensity conflict and demining today. This program, formerly known as the Army Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program. These, as I mentioned, one of those most enduring and bipartisan programs because, simply put, it saves lives. It helps our military. It supports our American businesses, many of them, and it also allows for people around the world to live the post-war environment and have some economic security and freedom. This program in particularly that we are going to be talking about today is based in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and it develops critical landmine and unexploded ordnance and clearing technologies that make the demining process itself safer and more efficient. And that, of course, benefits both the military and also the humanitarian efforts that are ongoing to demine these areas. I stand here representing a bipartisan group here in Congress, the Demining Caucus, effectively, and it is, as I mentioned, important and significant in the sense that it is bipartisan. I am joined, or will be joined, I believe, by some of my colleagues, Representative David Valdeo, as well as Representative Brian Mast, who might join us today, is my understanding. But collectively, we've been able to work to appropriate or to get the resources that I think that we need to be able to make this happen and to have the United States continue to lead the way in terms of funding and supporting these efforts. My understanding is we collectively were able to secure about $36.249 million. To me, not enough, but I'm grateful that there is an appetite for any of these resources to be appropriated. It's my privilege to be able to be here. Please continue to invite me and my colleagues to the conversation, especially if you bring very cute props, and I will leave you to it. Thank you.
I'm Kristen with the Halo Trust. Last month, the caucus hosted an event really looking at the why demining programs are so important for U.S. interests, from saving lives to building bilateral relationships, to removing explosives that could fall into the wrong hands, to enabling economic opportunities for host countries and for America. Demining is a key foreign policy tool as well as a vital humanitarian service. In contrast, today we look at the how demining takes place, the ways in which technology can be harnessed to make demining safer and more efficient, and the benefits of the Army strategies for low-intensity conflict demining program, not just for State Department implementing partners like HALO and MAG, but for the U.S. military, which must be prepared to address emerging explosive threats. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, starting with Sean Burke, who has served as the program manager for the Strategies for Low-Intensity Conflict Demining Program since 2002 at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. He is responsible for planning and executing the Army's demining technology investments in mine and UXO detection, clearance and neutralization, minefield vegetation removal, and area preparation, mine awareness and area survey, and NGO detection and clearance support technologies. Mr. Burke has 35 years experience in countermine and humanitarian demining technology development, beginning his government service with the Special Operations Low-Intensity Conflict Team in 1991. As an Army civilian, he deployed overseas twice with the 5th Special Forces Group to Kuwait in support of the U.S. Army Operation Intrinsic Action, and to Somalia in support of Operation Restore Hope. Next, we'll hear from Major General James Cowan, the CEO of the HALO Trust, who has been in post since 2015. James was a soldier for 30 years, serving in Germany, Northern Ireland, Africa, Hong Kong, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He commanded his regiment, the Black Watch, in Iraq in 2004 during fighting in Basra and subsequently around Fallujah. He was back in Iraq in 2006 and 2007, again in Basra. He took command of Task Force Helmand and served in Afghanistan during 2009 and 10. He was subsequently head of counterterrorism in the British MOD and led planning for the 2012 Olympics military security operation. His last job in the British Army was as General Officer commanding the 3rd Division. Lastly, we will hear from Sherry Bryan, who serves as Executive Director for MAG US in Washington, D.C. Previously, as Executive Vice President at the National Democratic Institute, she led a global nonprofit organization with 1,300 employees in 65 countries, working directly with foreign political leaders and civic partners on issues related to democracy, governance, electoral integrity, and conflict recovery. Sherry has decades of experience managing relationships with donor aid agencies, including the U.S. State Department, USAID, European governments, and multilateral organizations. So it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Sean, and thanks again for the caucus for hosting this event.
Again, good morning. It's nice to see a lot of the familiar faces that I've seen in these events in the past, and it's nice to meet some of the new faces as well as I've come around the room and met. Again, as they have introduced me before, my name is Sean Burke, and I'm the Program Manager for Humanitarian Demining. A lot of the displays you see around you today and the equipment that we have and some of the equipment in the room is ours, and we really appreciate being here as part of this event. Yes, we call ourselves Humanitarian Demining, but in Army circles, our program is also known as Strategies for Low-Intensity Conflict Demining. We are part of the U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command, and as Chrissy said, we're located at Fort Belvoir. I would like to extend my gratitude to Representatives Houlahan and Valadeo for co-chairing the UXO Demining Caucus and for sponsoring this event today, which focuses on innovations in demining technology. I would also like to thank Congressman Panetta and Chairman Mast for their participation or potential participation in this mission as well. I would also like to thank James and Sherry for being part of this event and providing their remarks after me. It's nice to have all the partners in one room together. I think this is the first time that I've been part of a panel with all of us, so thank you. And their respective organizations have been our partners in technology advancements for over 30 years. That's how long we've been in business together. I would also like to voice my deepest appreciation to Kristen, David, for all their hard work they do in their respective organizations and making sure this important work remains a priority for us all. The HD program develops state-of-the-art technology and modifies commercial off-the-shelf equipment that improves the safety, efficiency, and effectiveness of global humanitarian demining operations. We are DoD's only provider of humanitarian mine action technology. Much of this technology also enhances the capabilities of the warfighter. You'll see many pictures in the display depicting this. The partnerships between all of our programs play a leading role in solving the global threat from the explosive remnants of war. Our primary partners, HALO and MAG, have utilized our technologies to clear mines in UXO around the world for the last 25 years. Their feedback has enabled us to continuously improve and advance these technologies to meet emerging threats. Additionally, U.S. Army developed technology has benefited the humanitarian demining community. The H-Damon's dual sensor detector on the wall over there, artificial intelligence, and the vehicular mounted mine stalker ground penetrating radar are perfect examples of how leveraging U.S. Army technology can make a huge impact in saving lives. There is true synergy between the HD program and U.S. Army developments. This is bolstered by the access the HD program and our NGO partners provide that leads us to improved algorithm development through the collection of valuable data from legacy minefields and post-conflict environments. The geographic combatant commands also utilize our technologies in support of mine action objectives in DoD priority countries. Our program's innovative technologies provide enhanced opportunities for these mill-to-mill engagements with our strategic partners. The partnerships I have mentioned ultimately result in a reduced threat to civilian populations and forward deployed U.S. forces. They also improve economic development, increase regional stability, and solidify trust between nations. Now I'd like to change the focus from our partnerships to the demining technologies themselves. Currently, we have over 400 demining technologies deployed and actively working with our demining partners. This includes large mechanical equipment, mine and UXO discriminating detectors, EOD robots, remote sensing drones, and everything in between. Most of these technologies are being utilized by the Halo Trust and Mines Advisory Group. To date, we have provided technology that has cleared 420,000 mines in UXO from over 135 million square meters of hazardous land. This permits displaced populations to return home and land to be returned to productive use. Today, Halo Trust is currently utilizing just over 300 HD provided technologies valued at more than $9 million. These resources have empowered them to clear almost 70 million square meters of land. Our program also provides an additional $2 million annually to support Halo's operations in the field. Just this past year, HD technology helped Halo clear over 3.6 million square meters of land. Our other primary partner, MAG, is currently utilizing close to 70 HD technologies valued at over $6 million. This has enabled them to clear almost 44 million square meters of land, and we also provide them with nearly $2 million annually to support the operations in the field, which are all depicted in these slides on the walls. This past year alone, HD technologies have helped MAG clear 3 million square meters of land. As you can see, the congressional supplements provided to the HD budget have been leveraged to produce extraordinary results, converting every dollar into tangible progress and lives saved. The technologies which we have in this very small room today are just obviously a very small representation of what we have both at home and in the field. But make no mistake, they have made a huge impact in demining and have revolutionized mine and UXO detection operations. HDAMIDS, which is again on the wall over there, is a U.S. Army developed mine detection sensor and is the most successful mine detector in the world, for it is a true mine detector. It has the ability to discriminate mines and metallic clutter. This eliminates the need to dig or excavate countless pieces of scrap metal that other detectors cannot differentiate. The Halo Trust has been at the heart of advancing the use of this system around the world. Thousands of man-years of effort have been saved by using HDAMIDS and eliminating the necessity to dig tens of millions of metal fragments. Scorpion, which is also the cart-mounted system over there, is our premier UXO detection system. It's the only system in the world that has the ability to reliably discriminate UXO from clutter. We have deployed 14 systems that are working in active clearance operations in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. MAG was instrumental in the deployment of this system in Cambodia. Their success paved the way for other NGOs to use Scorpion in additional countries. Now, most of our NGO partners have adopted the techniques and procedures that MAG developed, and Scorpion has helped clear over 3,500 UXO and 14 million square meters of land. And finally, the Spot EOD robot is an excellent example of our ability to leverage state-of-the-art commercial technology for mine and UXO clearance operations. It is a unique reconnaissance and surface clearance tool used for EOD missions. Spot can remotely remove threat munitions for safe disposal in controlled locations. Halo is using this capability in Ukraine to explore and assess threats in high-risk environments that operators cannot enter safely. In conclusion, the progress we've made would not have been possible without our demining partners. We take great pride in our 30-year history of technological contributions to the reduction of mines in UXO. Our commitment to eliminating this global threat to humanity is stronger than ever. Two of my fondest memories include teaming up with Halo to clear the Jesus baptism site which you can see here, a lot of the churches along the road. The Jordanians had come across the river in 1967, kicked the Israelis back. They mined this area. The Israelis took the area over and mined it again. So these churches were not able, nobody could go in them, right along the baptism site on the Jordan River for many, many years. In fact, when they went back, which was about 5 to 10 years ago, I can't remember exactly, they went into one of the churches and Life magazine was opened up. And the Life magazine edition was the Robert Kennedy assassination. So that's how long, it was like a time chamber or something that these churches stood. So I was part of that. I was able to go into these churches and actually go down to the site that Halo had cleared. So that was a great memory. Second, we came across abandoned U.S. light tanks, which they had delivered 50 of these in Guadalcanal. As we were clearing the jungles around Henderson Airfield, we came across this one. We didn't know at the time whether it was Japanese or U.S., but we came across this, found out what it was, and that effort in Guadalcanal also sticks in my memory. But lastly, meeting victims impacted by landmines is when I truly understand that this is such an important mission. Yes, that is me in the picture about 20 years ago. This individual, this day, we were actually training Nira, if you know Nira, for H damage in Thailand, and a cobra got loose in the fields in Thailand. And when that happens, the village comes together. The deminers stop what they're doing, the farmers stop what they're doing, we stopped what we were doing, and they chased this cobra through the fields in this Thai village. And at the end of the road, we came across this individual. His name was Kun Si, and this is just a few of his family members, but he had lost his leg in the minefields that we were clearing. We asked him about his when this happened, and he mentioned that it happened right before the clearance operations had started there. So we had provided machines that were working. So as we walked down the road, we looked on the right, you could see all the minefields, heavy jungle, heavy brush. Then you go down the road a little bit more, you can see our machines working. We had big Unidisc machines similar to the Badger in the bottom item down there. And our machines were working, pulling out the brush. And then we walked down the road a little bit more, and you can see the Thailand Mine Action Center operators actually detecting the mines and pulling them out. And then you went a little bit further, and C's fields were actually being planted, and you can see the taro root being not only planted, but growing in the field. They had started utilizing that area as soon as we could clear it. And that really showed you the impact. I always remember that story. I think I told it at one of these events before, but I found the picture that goes along with it. His boys were actually working the field, and he had thanked us. He said, "Thank you for clearing this land and allowing us to make a living, but also keeping my sons from the same fate I had." So with that, I'd like to say thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate it. Nice meeting some of the new folks in the room. If you don't know me, feel free to come up and introduce yourselves, and feel free to ask some of my guys. If you're ready, just everybody on my team, raise your hand. You can ask them questions about any of the technology in the field, and thank you very much.
Acknowledging the team that's just put their hands up. Sean, you and your colleagues do an extraordinary job. You are responsible, you are the only organisation in the world that can be responsible for the delivery of these cutting-edge technologies that are here really for two reasons. You heard a little bit about my background at the beginning, and I think in a way I kind of personify those two purposes. I joined the British Army in 1982. I served in Northern Ireland, and the reason why both MAG and Halo are British-American charities is because much of the know-how and the original ammunition technical officer experience came from the Northern Ireland campaign. And a lot of British soldiers left the army and then put their skills to service within the humanitarian sector. My service then took me to many parts of the world, Africa, the Far East, but really three countries in particular have dominated my military career. The first was Kosovo, a place that was heavily mined by the Serbs, but was also bombed by NATO. And only this year, has Halo now completed its clearance work in Kosovo. It's an extraordinary effort, by many organisations over many years to achieve that. The two other operations that many people perhaps in this room were involved with were, of course, the Iraq conflict and Afghanistan. And I keep mentioning the fact that we are a British-American charity, but my service in both those countries gave me the great privilege, the great honour of working alongside US servicemen. During the Battle of Fallujah, my regiment was the only British unit seconded to support the US Marine Corps for the second Battle of Fallujah in November 2004. And I go back now to Iraq, and I've had lunch with the mayor of Fallujah. He said, "Have you been to Fallujah before?" And I said, "Yes, actually I have." But it's nice to go back for lunch rather than to fight. And the work we're doing now around Fallujah and elsewhere is to clear the IEDs left from those conflicts. In Afghanistan, you heard I was the British commander in Helmand. I worked alongside, again, the United States Marine Corps, but I was under the command of General Stanley McChrystal, and it was a great privilege in my life to have worked with so many fantastic American soldiers and Marines. And we all know what happened in those campaigns. We all know that about 50% of the casualties were not from gunfire, were not from direct fire engagements, but were from IEDs. And the casualties inflicted were horrific. I lost, in my brigade, 64 soldiers killed, of whom exactly 32 half were killed by IEDs. And I know that the figures are very much the same for our American comrades. So that is what drew me to the Halo Trust, because as well as those horrific military casualties were the civilian ones, because what differentiates landmines or their improvised equivalent, the IED, is that they are indiscriminate. They go into the ground to kill or maim a soldier, and they stay in the ground, and because they're plastic and hermetically sealed, they will kill and maim many, many years after the event. And the story of landmine clearance is really a story of creeping technological improvement. Where we were in the Second World War is actually where we began in Halo in 1988. Literally, men with bayonets prodding the ground at a 45-degree angle in an attempt to hit the mine without detonating the mine. And if we look at how we've come on since then, the technology that's been embraced, it is a testament to the amazing people here in this room who have, with their huge intelligence and experience, delivered cutting-edge technologies of the kind we've just heard about from Sean to make the difference that you're making in the world today. But we need to carry on that revolution. And if I'm honest, it has been a creeping program of change. What we are now seeking in the Halo Trust is not a series of incremental changes, but a revolution. We want to take the lessons of the Ukraine war, where Halo has its now largest program, and look to see how we can globalize those lessons and completely revolutionize the process of landmine clearance. We need to do this because, far from going away, as many people I think began to believe in the 2000s, landmines are coming back and are being used in huge numbers in conflicts around the world. And therefore, we need to move at speed. It's a great thing that there are now 4 million people living on land cleared by the Halo Trust in Afghanistan. That's a great thing. But that's a war that's over, and the United States is not allowed to reinvest in that country. Those 4 million people are probably happy, probably content to farm their land, and probably won't become migrants. And therefore, that's something the United States can take forward as a legacy. But it's not the legacy you need to be thinking about, because it took 30 years to achieve that clearance for those 4 million people. Ukraine is not going to wait 30 years, nor 50 years perhaps, given the scale of contamination. Some estimates have put the scale of contamination in Ukraine as high as 174,000 square kilometres. That's probably hugely exaggerated. And what we're presenting in Halo is a new vision for clearance based upon a technology strategy in 3 parts. The first is to find, and using wide area surveillance coupled to artificial intelligence, using open source satellite data, using drone data, and then taking machine learning to analyze that data, we are able to greatly reduce the volumes of land contaminated and return it quickly without cost to the people who need to farm it. That is probably the biggest prize. It will cut the costs down from many, many tens of billions to perhaps 1 or 2 billion. And that is a price well worth paying, given what international donors want strategically for Ukraine. Because it is a country that is incredibly fertile, it should be part of the breadbasket of the world, but cannot be, since most of the land that is its most fertile agricultural land is also contaminated by landmines and other unexploded ordnance. It is also true to say that if we want to exploit Ukraine's mineral wealth, then you cannot mine without first demining. And what we need to do, not only in Ukraine but elsewhere in that world, is show the economic benefits of what we do. So the first part of our work in this technological revolution that we're embracing is to find. The second thing is to confirm. And we've heard from Sean some of the amazing cutting-edge detector technologies that allow us to do that confirmation process. But we need to keep investing in new technologies to drive down the biggest problem we have in mine action, which is the false positive rates. We've got to find new technologies. Perhaps it is going to be in the form of magnetic resonance, perhaps it will be in the form of nuclear technologies that will allow us to take away the other battlefield detritus that tends to slow up and distract from the process of clearance. So find the problem, confirm the problem, and finally the third leg on the stool of our strategy is to clear the problem. And landmine clearance has, until now, been very much based upon human demining. Our hands and knees work on the painstaking efforts of incredibly brave men and women who go out day after day to do this work in places as distant as Colombia or Cambodia. We now need to embrace technology and allow us to perhaps replace some of those deminers, those human deminers, with machinery. And through plant, through excavators, through a whole range of different technologies, we can massively accelerate the speed of clearance. We also need to use technology psychologically. So very often people put off using land.
Thank all of you for being here. I know the staff is mostly staff right here, but thanks to all of you and thanks to the Halo Trust for the good work that they're doing. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C., so the fact that you would take the time to come here and make sure that we are continuing to support your efforts abroad, be it in Afghanistan, be it Ukraine, and clearly in other parts of the world that we're seeing, means a lot to us. Those are part of the EOD caucus that understand how important your demining efforts are, and myself and Rick Crawford continuing to make sure that there's the appropriate amount of funding in the appropriations process is something that we can't do alone. The fact that you are here making sure that Democrats and Republicans understand how important this type of funding is for the work that you do is something that is needed not just this week, but every week going forward. So please, I just wanted to quickly express my gratitude to the work that the Halo Trust is doing, not just abroad, but right here in Washington, D.C., making that you can continue to do your work abroad. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it and look forward to continuing to support the good work that you do at Halo Trust. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you guys. Thank you, guys.
The Congressman has put it far more eloquently than I could. I'd like to finish, though, because half the reason why people won't use this land is psychological. They are scared, they're frightened, and they have every reason to be frightened. They have been pushed off that land in the context of Ukraine. It may be a couple of years since they last farmed it. We can clear it to a very high degree, but unless we can convince them that the land is safe to use, they will not come back onto it. So a large part of our work now, working with the Buffett Foundation, has been developing systems such as mine rollers that are allowing us to conduct field trials, demonstrations that show that the land is actually safe to use. So I'm going to finish just by returning to where I started. The reason why this work has such strong bipartisan support is because, on the one hand, it has humanitarian value. It saves life for innocent civilians, often children, who are killed without any good reason long after the conflict has ended. but it also serves the United States' national interest. It is making your country, your wonderful country, safer and stronger, and helping you become wealthier by opening up trade opportunities. And so by way of conclusion, one country that should be long into the history books in terms of its landmine problem is Angola. But there, in the middle of Angola, is a new railway system, the Lobito Corridor. It is opening up the heart of Africa for mineral extraction, and the United States knows that and is working hand in glove with the Angola government to make it possible to bring those minerals out from Africa. We are clearing those landmines along that route. That is what I mean by making America wealthier, helping trade as well as aid. Thank you all very much for listening to me this morning. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague from MAG.
Thank you all. It's a tough act to follow with these two gentlemen who are such experts and have so much knowledge of this sector. Thank you. My name is Sherry Bryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Mines Advisory Group here in the United States. And I just want to say thanks to Congresswoman Houlahan and Panetta for stopping by. For any of you who work for members of Congress, and our Boston Dynamic partner over here who's helping me make this presentation.
He's excited.
Very excited, yes. I also want to thank Sean and Major General Callan from HALO for being here. We are partners in all of this. Couldn't do it without them, and very much appreciate their presence here. So for more than 3 decades, and just by the way, I'm going to say basically the same thing these guys said in slightly different way, but they have said it all, and appreciate both the photos and the equipment, Sean, that you were able to bring here, because I think it's sort of hard to talk about this without seeing it firsthand. And hopefully some of you will have a chance to visit Sean and his team down at Fort Belvoir in the field to see this stuff in action, because it's quite impressive. MAG has been working for decades, for over 3 decades. We have about 5,000 staff that work in 40 countries around the world. We've been working with the U.S. Congress, with the government, our military partners, and our sector partners like HALO to clear landmines, unexploded ordnance, secure weapons, and help countries recover from conflict. We're proud to stand here not only as a, do we need to take a break real quick? Congressman, would you like to?
Good to see you.
I'd like to welcome to the microphone Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Brian Mast, one of the biggest supporters of Demining Caucus. Thank you so much.
Glad to join you all. How are you? Nice to see you. Appreciate you, Brian, and HALO, and everybody that's part of the demining world and other things that are peripheral to that. But obviously the demining world is close to my heart. I've been a part of demining. I didn't just kick it stupidly. There's a little bit more to it than that. But I certainly understand that what you all do, it doesn't always make headlines. It does save a lot of lives, though. It makes a lot of difference in the lives of people in the communities and the countries that we work with across the globe. And I don't have real formal remarks for you today. I wanted to take the opportunity to do something a little bit different. And just say, anybody that's, are there bomb techs in this room? Any of you all bomb techs? I'm the only awesome one?
That guy right there.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes to what my point is. I want to take the opportunity to just say, tell me a little bit about where I can help, where you guys see gaps right now, what you want me to be working on, what you want me to be doing as somebody that is an enormous advocate for everything that goes on in this world. And this was a part of my world, but we didn't have things like this when this was a part of my world, which wasn't that long ago. But the point I'm making is, let me know what's gee whiz out there, what you want me to pay attention to, what's on the horizon. And I would just say, take this opportunity to lobby me and educate me a little bit instead of me telling everybody how great these organizations are, everything that the United States military does, the Department of War, State Department, and everybody that's peripheral to these programs, all of those programs. Tell me what I can do. The floor is yours now.
I appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much.
What can I do?
Well, Chairman, if I could start, I'm James Panetta, the Chief Executive of the HALO Trust. And like you, I was a serviceman in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that what I've just been talking about just literally before you came in the door is a revolution in mining clearance. A new strategy that moves us beyond human demining, the 10,000 people who work for Halo today, towards embracing technology at the very macro level, finding the problem through the marriage of artificial intelligence, drone and satellite imagery, and we could shrink down the Ukraine problem by literally an order of magnitude. We can manage that, and we're working on it. Secondly, the introduction of technologies to found it to confirm the problem, so things like magnetic resonance, cutting-edge technologies that we can bring in that will replace things like ground-penetrating radar, and then finally to embrace mechanical assets that can speed up the rate of clearance and ultimately bring in not just robotics but autonomy and make landmine clearance not only much faster but much safer.
If we're comparing a drone mapping to a conventional mapping, what's the difference in time and what's the difference in accuracy?
So what drone mapping is allowing us, it's the marriage of the drone with the artificial intelligence. You can then bring it down to a much tighter polygon and save huge amounts of money by not clearing mines from areas that aren't contaminated. So that's what we're working on now. We have some great partners, people like Esri, AWS and the like, from the tech sector helping us out.
You're saying you're not mapping an area where there's nothing to map.
And we'll be working, I have my leadership from Army here, we'll be working with Halo Trust later this year to get AI on drones into Ukraine to get valuable data that helps us develop these
I've seen you
technologies.
start to bring that stuff forward to my office.
Yes, that would be important because there's a lot of technology. You can see a lot of military in these, a lot of photos. Yes, you see yourself over my left shoulder, probably up on the screen there. But over on the right, there's a lot of mill-to-mill engagements we support. So to any of your military buddies come by, let them know we support any HMA efforts they have around the world. They can utilize our technologies to showcase and build friendships. And
is Ukraine your biggest focus right now?
it's one. Indo-PACOM is probably our largest focus, but Ukraine is a close second.
What would you give me as the largest focus on each continent?
Either or both. I think, like right now, Cambodia is getting a lot of attention. I know they have folks from state and the white. We're going over in 2 weeks, but they're getting a lot of money. Obviously, keep our adversaries at bay. So if we're in there engaging, we can keep China and Russia out and help build relationships. And then we have the same thing along the Thai-Cambodia border in Vietnam. As you see it on the upper left there, these are friendships we want to have and maintain. So any engagement we can do in those countries to get everything out is great.
Engagement is great. To what extent is China working in the demining space?
Well, it's not.
The humanitarian demining.
You'd be surprised. Like we had a workshop there 2 years ago because Cambodia Mine Action Authority was the lead for banning the landmine treaty since 2024, and they had a workshop with us at the forefront to highlight this event. And it was amazing that the day, as we're putting on the workshop, and we had some pictures of CMA, China's coming in, they immediately do a meeting and say they're donating money to the cause right as our workshop's going on. You can see them all over the press. They took over Ream Naval Base. We since, I think, are taking it back, but we built that naval base in Cambodia, let the Chinese come in and do exercises there. So anything we can do in those countries that can keep our adversaries out is a great thing. And this is one way to do it because they have this huge problem over there.
The Chinese have visited our operations in Zimbabwe and Ethiopia. They're poking around in places where they have other interests, other economic interests.
Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Azerbaijan contacted us our mill group from Azerbaijan just contacted us last week to see if we would engage with them because, UCOM is closing down. The UCOM HMA section is closing down. So they want us to engage and we're working with state to determine if that's a viable function.
What toy here has the most potential?
Well, the handheld detector there is the best discriminating detector in the world. That's a U.S. Army developed system that we GPR, ground penetrating radar metal detector fused together, and it finds mines and discriminates metal from clutter. So about 98% of the clutter you can reject and only dig a few of the targets as opposed to every one.
Does it still come with some stupid headset?
No, Halo is the biggest user of it. Yeah, I mean, it's, there was talk about battery, we've looked at battery replacements, we've changed them, it's a lot lighter now and a lot easier to use, but this system is the only UXO discrimination system in the world, this system called Scorpion. And Stephen over there on the
Explain
slide.
that term to me, UXO discrimination.
So we use a Boris software to basically look, so if we know we're going after blue, a blue stripe saying Cambodia, we can set a threshold using this Boris software to use this metal detector, which is a commercial off-the-shelf detector, to eliminate everything else that doesn't look like those targets. Steve is developing an Apex system which uses a three-axis transmitter, another radar type system and receivers, an array of receivers that can go into the ground and actually classify the target. So you can actually get an image, orientation, depth, and what the target actually is, as long as it's been in its library. So if you can train that system on the library, that system will classify. That's coming out this year. We just developed it over the last few years, and that's going to be a big headline coming out, as well as some remote sensing and drones.
Anything else you want me to be aware of?
I think some of the underfunded needs are Syria, Gaza, which we're all waiting to sort of see where that goes, Sudan. So there's still many places in the Middle East, Lebanon, where there's a deep need for resources. That obviously the geopolitical issues have to be sort of resolved for enough stability, but I think those shouldn't be lost in this conversation.
Obviously, Syria is a major foreign fighter threatening ISIS threats. It'd be great to take some Russian and Turkish bases out of there and put Americans in there instead of having American bases taken. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, sir, Army, Josh Moore, Army DEFCON. I would say we're having some challenges on the technology development funding side, on our military side, for things that were labeled counter IUD, which now that that's not in vogue in the post-GWAT era, those funding lines are targets. But what that's really doing is it's allowing us to develop things like airborne small drone GPRs. Another technology is looking at overhead imagery-based detection of mines that could be transferred, have some technology transfer to the humanitarian demining space, and that could be helpful if that was secure.
Very good. Good. Set it my way. So let me know where you're looking for a ladder or a push or whatever that might be. Yes, sir. Anything else? Speak now for please. That's it. All right. Really appreciate the work in this space. Like I said, it's close to my heart, and understand certainly the consequences, whether to those that are doing the work or those that are just affected by their residency in the area. And it's work that doesn't go to a great amount of glory, but when you're making a difference in somebody's life, there's a lot of glory that's deserved. So I wish you all the best to take care.
It might be interesting if we had a chance to have some Q&A, because we do have some people outside our sector in the room, and if we've got 10 minutes left, I would say let's throw this open to questions. I really think it's important for all of us to understand the new technological advances that you're talking about, James, and that all of you know about. And I think that there is a new generation of mine clearance that can be developed soon and scale up the productivity that we're already having in so much of the world. I think there's another piece to all this, which is the soft power of U.S. foreign policy, that it really makes a difference. Not only can we save lives, but we can solidify our relationships in a number of countries where we are helping both citizens and government return stability and clear lands that are much needed. So I think that the soft power part of this cannot be overlooked, the diplomatic part of this cannot be overlooked, and the tangible results that we see. One of the things that we think is so promising about our work is that citizens can see the impact of this work day in, day out. They can see when fields are cleared and kids can go back to school and hospitals can be built. It's tangible. So it's a great foreign policy tool, it's a great soft power tool, and it's a great impactful, tangible tool. And I'm going to defer to who is hosting the Q&A. Is that you, Dave?
It's me.
My counterpart in bag. But why don't we just throw this open, because I know some of you have to leave in the next few minutes, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Dave from MAG, or Mines Advisory Group, just here for Q&A. So does anybody have any questions?
questions for the panel? Or did they get them all out? We got one over there? No?
Question here. You mentioned, James, the technology revolution. What obviously, funding is always a great tool, but what other mechanisms, what other things are you guys seeing that you need from the U.S. government perspective to kind of have this revolution?
So what Sean and his team do is deliver new technologies, and they do it brilliantly, as you just said. But there are some very, very simple technologies that are going to change our work as well. So just a little example, the humble micro excavator. Something, if you were, it's Saturday afternoon and you've got a pile of rubble that you're shifting in your backyard, you're going to hire a micro excavator to come do it. We use these things, and we are adopting them on a large scale across our demining work. This creates not only speed clearance, but it creates safety as well, because we're now dealing with certain mine types, notably in Southern Africa, hugely sensitive, very, very hard to detect, they've been in the ground for a long time, quite vulnerable to things like tree roots growing over them, and if not handled carefully, can kill. So by just using a micro excavator, suddenly you can change that, and you can work in amongst the forestry without having to take down all the trees. It's much more agile. So it's a really simple example of the kind of machinery that we're beginning to adopt. But if you go to somewhere like Ukraine, we're talking about long-armed excavators that allow a piece of plant to work at a distance. So obviously, if an excavator ran over an anti-tank mine, it would have a catastrophic impact upon the crew. So by having a long arm, if the bucket gets blown off, it's not the end of the world. So the use of plants at a large scale is something we need to adopt. The bringing into service at the next level up of these new detector technologies, I've talked about magnetic resonance, they need to be fielded in a way that is reliable. The great, there's not much to be said in favour of the Iraq and Afghan wars, but they did allow the United States military to adopt technologies that were reliable. Exterminators is the one we've talked about particularly today, and we've adopted it. But if we're now having to field new cutting-edge technologies ourselves, because conventional armies are not adopting them, there will be the high risk of just the thing not working properly. It might work as a laboratory tool, but we need to have systems that are going to function when manufactured at scale. So we've got to achieve that. And then my higher level is the fine piece, is this, when we are involved in these huge areas of Ukraine I've mentioned, but exactly the same thing applies in a country like Syria. Let's say the Iranian regime falls. The Iraq-Iran war, those minefields are still there and need to be cleared. Let us say the Cuban regime falls. Cuba was one of the largest manufacturers of landmines in the world. There are huge parts of Cuba that have developed minefields. We need to be able to shrink that problem down and not do clearance work in areas that have no landmines. So the three levels I'm giving you, at the highest level, defined, middle level, confirm, the lower level of clear, there's a structure there to that revolution that's going to accelerate the speed of clearance. And our plan with our strategy is to speed up clearance threefold. That's where we need US government to get involved.
I would just add to that, sort of the high level is so important because there's a perception in many places that, I met somebody from the private sector the other day and they said, this landmine business is sort of an 80s issue. And in fact, it is an increasingly challenging area because it's growing, not decreasing. And I think there's not enough awareness by policymakers that this is continuing to be a challenge. As James said, Ukraine alone is one of the most devastatingly contaminated countries in the world. And it's not stopping. And so we've got to raise this awareness. People think that this has been taken care of, that it's something of the past, that we're dealing with legacy issues, and we are in some places, but that it's increasing, it will continue to grow.
I echo all their comments. In fact, with the micro excavators he was mentioning, they have them in our proposals, and I'm sure you need more than 5, but they asked us for 5 this year. We just met this week. I think Stephen's passed that information along, that these are the types of things that are easy for us to provide. So the funding this year for us is tremendous. It's more than we've ever seen, and that's going to help us help them more. And like I said, the easy solutions that people don't think of that have a great impact are things that we can provide as well. COTS-based technology is huge. If you can get something that's easily supportable in the field, you don't want 1-offs, 2-offs, and then they break down and you can't fix them. I think that's a huge point. You need something that is definitely maintainable, supportable, and obviously easily trained for the most part. So, and these are some of the examples he mentioned are that. So we have a large micro excavator, mini excavator, we sometimes call them, program next year, because I think we're going to get about 8, I think, because Mag is asking for them as well.
So the revolution going on with remote sensing and artificial intelligence, and I think a lot of us in the field have realized like how valuable the data sets that we actually have and then collected in partnership with everybody is. I also know that like Halo is firmly committed to like transparency and pushing these technologies out to the field across the board, but I'm curious how Halo is balancing that aspect of transparency with the value of the data sets that you currently have, and then engaging with the community to like push that technology forward.
Yeah, well, we're a not-for-profit, and we're not here to make a profit from by keeping data that might have humanitarian benefit to ourselves. And we share our data with the Geneva International Centre for Humanitarian Demining. We observe international mine action standards. I formed something called the Drumvandrig Group, or headquarters is an unpronounceable Scottish castle called Drumvandrig. But with MAG, with Norwegian People's Aid, with Humanitarian Inclusion, with the various Danish deminers, I am trying to inculcate a much more cooperative spirit in mine action, so we do all work together and are transparent. So that's something I'm very, very keen on. I do think the whole mine action world needs to change significantly. I think data priorities are shifting, and Halo really does 3 things. It does rural landmine clearance, but urban bomb disposal in places like Gaza and the ruined cities of Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East. This is where humans live more and more, and not in rural settings. And then the third part of our work is weapons and ammunition management. So in all those 3 areas, we think we have a very significant offer to make, but we're very much in favour of doing it. And that's why we're sitting here together with our friends in Mines Advisory Group, because this can't be done alone.
Okay, I think that's it for time. Just a couple quick announcements. Our annual International Mine Awareness Day event will be on the Hill on April 16th. You'll see the folks from HDRB, some of their equipment, maybe more. Also, last year there was a mine duck and a mine rat, and everything we can to get them back in the building, which can be challenging from time. So, other than that, please grab some food, some coffee on your way out, and thank you all so much.